Well, good morning and thanks for coming. So I'm Miriam Nolan, and if I didn't meet you personally, I hope I will soon. We're really excited about holding what we're calling Community Foundation 101. This is the third of these sessions. We've been, as you know, around the various counties. What we really want to do is give you an opportunity to learn what's new about us, what's most helpful to you. We talk a lot about the Community Foundation being a public service. Because you do the hard work, we may provide some money from time to time, but without you, this community is not going to be as good as it can be. We have staff here from all parts of the foundation. So what we hope is that we can cover in broad strokes what the foundation is doing today and how it can be helpful, we hope, to you. What we want to do is hopefully have you leave feeling that you know what you need to know about us to access the resources we have. We also do answer your phone calls, and we encourage your phone calls. I know, guys, and there are a lot of phone calls. But if we can be helpful and save you time and make it easier, we're glad to do that. So you're going to hear about the grants and program side of the foundation. You're also going to hear about the organizations that are raising endowment with us and the services we provide to those organizations, and also about the DMC Foundation, a newer affiliate of the Community Foundation, and Don Jones will tell you about those grants. Let me just introduce Katie Brisson, our Vice President of Program. Katie.
All right, so what we're planning to do today is give you a lot of information, and like we said, it's a 101, trying to give you a lot of kind of high level on here's what the Community Foundation is and here's what we're up to. So I'm going to cover the first two of these bullets, give you an overview of what the Community Foundation is, and then an overview of some of our current projects. And this room, I have to say, we're very thankful for all of you for coming out, and it's really quite amazing to think about all the work that's come out of the people in this room and the good you're doing for the community. So some of you know us pretty well, and some of you are new to us. So what I'm going to try to do is do an overview of what we do, but give you examples from 2014, so you can kind of know some of our current work. So before I get started on who we are, I just want to take a step back. Many of you are familiar with this pie chart about where money comes from that goes to nonprofit entities. And we all know that the vast majority of gifts to nonprofits come from individuals. You know that and spend a lot of your time building a donor base, but we keep that in mind too, and that we know that foundation dollars play a unique role with organizations, usually helping you leverage other money or helping you at kind of key moments along the way. And I also just want to take a minute to talk about the different types of foundations to kind of get to what a community foundation is. Independent foundations are by far the kind of largest in terms of numbers and dollars. So those would be something like the Ford Foundation, the Kellogg Foundation, the Mott Foundation, where there was an individual donor or a family who, family foundations are in this category, who put money, who gave money, who had a specific interest area. That money grows over time, and a portion of that is granted every year. Then there's corporate foundations, which are tied to companies in some ways. Some are actually separate structures, some are built in within the corporation. But these are usually tied, of course, as you would understand, to the interests of the company. So you will see the corporate foundations maybe making grants in the communities where they have employees, in the communities where they want to build sales. And so the activities are philanthropic, but there's a lot more to the strategy on what they're doing. Often the corporate foundations are very lean staffed. You might have trouble, a lot of them are online applications and those kinds of things just because of sheer volume of what they're dealing with. Operating foundations. This is a foundation that is set up usually for the purpose of supporting a specific entity. So the easiest local example would be the Hannon Foundation, was created to support the activities of the Hannon House, which is a place for seniors in Midtown. So the Hannon Foundation raises funds, grows endowment to support those activities. And then there's community foundations. So community foundations are different from all of these in that our money comes from thousands of different people, different donors, different companies, businesses. Those folks set up different funds with us, which you'll hear about today, and they're pooled together as part of the Community Foundation assets. And what it allows us to do, I hope as you see as our presentation goes along, is to leverage the interests of people who care about similar things in the region. It allows us to leverage those funds to grow them more, and really kind of becomes a source of education for all the donors in what's happening in the community. The other distinction about a community foundation is we are a C3 public charity, just like you are. You can find our 990 on GuideStar, just like yours. So we do see ourselves as kind of public servants, as serving the community as well, and that's ingrained in all of our staff and what we do every day. I just want to say too, we're really lucky to be in Michigan. We're a very unique state in that we have a large number of foundations. We're also a unique state in that we have the Council of Michigan Foundations established as our regional association of grant makers. Council of Michigan Foundations is headquartered in Grand Haven, but they serve the whole state. They have a very active Detroit office. So if you don't know about them, you might want to just peruse their website because they do have a directory of foundations, and it's just a good place to know what foundations are up to. So a little bit about us. The Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan is 30 years old, which makes us actually relatively young for community foundations around the country. New York and Cleveland turned 100 this year. We're kind of catching up, if you will, in terms of building endowment and having an impact on this region. But we are catching up. We're right now ranked about number 23 in terms of size of the 700 community foundations around the country. And we are unique in that we serve a 7-county area. You'll see many community foundations supporting individual cities, but our founders, Joe Hudson was our kind of key founder, and many others during that time frame felt very strongly that for Detroit to move forward, the region needs to move forward, and we should all be working together to improve the quality of life. And you'll also see here we do have a large board, a 57-member board, who are very active, very engaged. And yes, a lot happens in the committee level, but it's because of that board and because of Miriam Nolan's leadership that we've grown to the size we are and having the impact we are. We're growing and changing, again, different from other foundations. We're going to be different every year because we have new funds becoming part of us, new activities. So in 2014, our grants topped 3,800 grants, totaling $99 million. And so this is it's a big number, and I'm going to break that down for you a little bit on what that represents. But just last year, we were at 50 million mark. So we're really growing quickly. Our mission, which I've kind of covered, promote and facilitate permanent change in the 7-county region, and we help donors invest in organizations that they care about nationwide. And I want to explain that last word because people get confused. You say you're 7 counties, but it says you help donors nationwide. We want people from this region to be philanthropic, and so we work with them on whatever they care about. So for some donors, they want to help their alma mater, where they went to college, where they grew up. So they may do that through their funds with us, but also most of the time they're going to be supporting charities here. But also we do see it as part of our mission to make sure that the donors who have left Southeast Michigan stay engaged. So actually Miriam's going to Florida this month, some of our staff, to meet with some of our donors who have retired, might have had their business here and raised their kids here and then retired to the south. So we are really working hard to make sure they're updated on what's happening and what they can still give to in this region. So now I'm going to walk through kind of our 6 kind of key functions of the work we do. And then again, for each of these, give you some examples of what we did in 2014. The number one thing we do every day is we steward the funds entrusted to us at the Community Foundation. And again, we have lots of different funds set up by different people for different purposes. We do not expect you to learn all those funds. We're going to get to that. But it's our job to know all those funds and make sure that they're used in the right way. So you may have heard recently that we made a grant to Presbyterian Villages for their new project in partnership with Hartford Baptist Church for a seniors facility. What you may not know is that our grant is focused on things in those facilities to help people with hearing impairments or vision impairments. The reason that we made the grant that way is because that grant came from the Elizabeth White Fund of the foundation. Now again, to be clear, Presbyterian Villages, they came and talked to us after hearing about the project. we encouraged them to apply for that piece because we knew we had this fund and there might be a good match. Elizabeth White was our very first bequest to the Community Foundation almost 30 years ago. It was a $1 million bequest. She's a woman who cared about people with hearing and vision impairments, which is why she earmarked the money in that way. In that 30 years, we have now granted $1 million from that fund, and the fund balance is now at $2 million. So it's going to keep growing. And that is why we are about endowment at the Community Foundation and have that as our key focus, because we know those funds are going to continue to grow over time. We're going to continue to make grants that are, addressing current needs of the community. Another example, you may have heard about some grants we've been making in Southfield. The one on the left here is to the Field Zone, which is a teen center in Southfield. And our grant went to help include special needs youth in the programming there. The reason we were able to do that grant last year is that in 2014, there had been an independent Southfield Community Foundation. That foundation terminated its operations in 2014, but those permanently endowed funds that have been established are now part of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. We take that role very seriously, that we're now stewarding those funds. And the nice thing about the grant I mentioned, some of the money for that grant came from the Southfield funds, but some of it also came from the Balance Fund at the foundation, which helps people with special needs. So we were able to make a little bit larger size grant. Another example in this space, you might have heard about, we made a $50,000 grant to a group called La Casa in Livingston County last year. They are a group that serves abused children, and our grant is helping them get National Child Advocacy Center status, which allows them to have a wider range of services. The reason we were able to do that grant is that 15 years ago, the Detroit Auto Dealers Association set up a fund with us that benefits projects for youth. This has been a great partnership with the Detroit Auto Dealers. They've been steadily building that endowment fund with us from money that are a portion of the proceeds from the charity preview that happens every year. That fund has now granted $4 million in that 15 years. Wonderful partnership, and the dealers help make the decisions on where that money goes every year. So again, I'm giving you these stories so you can understand what we're doing on every day. Again, you won't need to learn all these funds, but we really encourage you to come and talk to us. And when we hear what you're doing, we'll keep you in mind as these opportunities come, or we know we're looking for proposals for a specific need. The next thing we do is we work with donors to accomplish their philanthropic goals. We are working every day side by side with our donors. Some have passed away, but many are working with us as they make their decisions. So many of you have gotten checks from us where you get the check in the mail and you go, I didn't ask for money, where did this come from? If that happens to you, that means it came from a donor advised fund at the Community Foundation. So we have 400 of these funds where donors establish funds with us. We work with them to meet their philanthropic goals. We do due diligence on the grants to make sure they're sound grants. But as the foundation's growing and as some of these funds are growing, we really are working more hand in hand with a lot of the donors. So I wanted to just mention the Stebbins Family Fund, which is a fund that supports activities in St. Clair County. They've been making a grant now for several years to a project at the United Way in St. Clair for a program that trains adults with special needs to build wheelchair ramps for seniors who are homebound. It's giving great job training for these individuals. It's also helping the seniors be able to leave their homes more and be more flexible on where they can go. This donor has been supporting this program year after year now for a while, but it really is becoming a national model for other groups around the country. Likewise, that same family, the Stebbins family, they wanted to really help the organizations build their individual donor base. So one thing we did in 2014 is for a group of charities that they cared about, we brought in the Johnson Center for Philanthropy from Grand Valley. We did a fundraising training for these youth organizations, and then one-on-one coaching for them, and then the donor followed up. So the donor paid for that to happen, and then the donor made matching grants to all the agencies. She put up $20,000 to each of the agencies. If they could raise the money from individuals, she would match it. And so that's happening out of our donor advised funds. Our other kind of more recent example from our donor advised funds, again, I want to give you, for those of you familiar with us, let you know more and more of this kind of thing is happening. Howard Sims, who is one of our donor advisors, has been involved with a group. It's a national fraternity for African American professional men called the Boulé. The Detroit chapter of the Boulé has a mentoring program for youth. One Saturday a month, they mentor 60 to 70 high-achieving African-American boys who are interested in going into business, medicine, or law. So that donor actually asked the Community Foundation, is granting money to us to help educate the boys on civic leadership. So we have been spending some of our Saturdays, we're actually, a whole team of us is going out this Saturday to introduce the boys to a number of nonprofit organizations that touch the space they're interested in. This is a reason, I tell people this, to read our newsletters, follow us on Facebook, because we weren't doing this a year ago. This is a new project for us. So the next thing we do is we work with nonprofits to build endowment funds that support that individual nonprofit agency. So Randy will be talking about the nuts and bolts of this a little later and what we can do for you there. But I do want to say this is a core part of what we do. It's been a real laser focus of the foundation from its inception. And we're starting to see that pay off, literally, for the organizations. There's 190 organizations that have their endowment funds as part of the Community Foundation assets. In 2014, a couple examples of things that happened we were very excited about. Equality Michigan, which has had an endowment fund with us for a while, and they really set it up as a tool. You know, they weren't actively growing it, but set it up as a tool for their donors to put them into their estates. So they had a donor, Dr. Henry Messner, who passed away last year. He was a great guy, a neurosurgeon. He used to actually make lunch for the staff there and bring it to them every day in his retirement. Anyway, he left gifts totaling $3 million in his estate to them. $1 million he granted to them directly. $2 million of it went into their endowment fund at the Community Foundation. So that means they're going to have that money in perpetuity, a portion granted to them every year for general operating. Another agency I want to highlight, and Father Larry is here today and some other folks, we were very excited that the Solanus Casey Center established an endowment fund with us in 2014. For those of you who are not familiar with the Casey Center, it's a beautiful space, a retreat center built to honor Solanus Casey, who was a Capuchin friar who dedicated his life to serving the poor. And we're hoping that Solanus Casey may be named a saint here at some point. There's a good chance of that happening. But regardless, they attract thousands of visitors from around the world every year. They established an endowment fund, again, as a tool for people who want to give in this way, that it's now set up for folks to do that, and I think we're already seeing gifts coming into that. So another activity of the Community Foundation that not a lot of people know we do, but we do provide college scholarships. We have about 40 funds now that individuals have established with us to provide college scholarships for a variety of populations. I mean, we have some earmarked for kids from Pontiac, we have some earmarked for single moms. There's a number of scholarships. But what we did 2 years ago is we tried to make the whole process easier. It used to be you had to learn all our funds and apply to each of the ones you thought you were eligible for. We now have one online system that high school seniors can just submit one application to us by May 1st. And then what we do is automatically sort what funds they're eligible for so they'd be considered by any of the funds they're eligible for. But it's saving them paperwork, the guidance counselors paperwork to do it in this way, and it's working very efficiently so far. And what's happening is youth are getting more access to more scholarships because they might not have realized they were eligible for others. And then the last thing I want to cover for my part is that this is the part of the foundation that you never know what's going to happen next, but we manage a lot of innovative projects. And this space primarily is where people like you in the community come to us and say, I have an idea. There's a need in the community. There's no funds established for this need. We need to go raise these funds and make something happen. Some of these projects are long-term for us. Some of them become permanently part of us. Some are very short-term. So I just want to, again, give you examples. Probably most of you have heard about the New Economy Initiative. So that was started in 2007. That was 10 foundations originally from around the country who wanted to see business growing again in Detroit and that spirit of entrepreneurship growing. So those 10 foundations invested $100 million in the New Economy Initiative, which was all pooled at our foundation. The staff for that project is part of our staff, and they have been working hard to build a system to support entrepreneurs. We were really delighted that in 2014, those funders plus a new one, Cerdna joined the bunch, now invested another $40 million into a phase 2 of New Economy Initiative. One really exciting thing that happened in 2014, which you may have heard about, is the Any Ideas contest. So we put a call out to existing businesses in Detroit, Highland Park, and Hamtramck for grants to help grow their businesses. And we got 646 businesses applying. I mean, these are neighborhood businesses across the city. We made, Don, is it 32 grants? 32 grants were made. But the great news is that all of those other folks that applied were also linking to other services too. Also in 2014, you may have heard about the Detroit Head Start Innovation Fund. 2 years ago, the Head Start system in Detroit was rebid by the federal government. We had 8 local foundations who said, this is a big deal. We need to be supportive of this. It's an opportunity to be as innovative as we can be in the Head Start system. So there's almost $6 million that was put into a fund at the foundation by these 8 foundations to support those Head Starts that were chosen. This money is acting as the private match that they need, but we're also doing common data collection for them. We are doing a monthly learning network. We are doing other things to help them support each other and bring innovation into, what's a very highly regulated system. Also in 2014, so I'm going to mention some of these more short-term things that happen. The Knight Foundation out of Miami partners with us a lot. They do have a local staff as well focused on Detroit. And what they wanted to do as part of the revitalization efforts is really support individual leaders at nonprofits and in the city who are making a difference right now for Detroit. So they came to us saying, all right, we want to grant $250,000 through the Community Foundation to local organizations. And again, we partner with these foundations in this way because we can be a little bit more on the ground locally with folks. But then the applications came in and they were so great, just really wonderful pitches from a number of organizations that they upped it to $400,000 that was granted for this project. And the range of those grants, we've been sending some people to training programs at Harvard, nonprofit leaders there. But also, like Southwest Solutions really wanted to send their senior custodian to HVAC training because they're trying to redo these old buildings and they need someone with that expertise. And they couldn't afford before to send him to that. Another example of a project that is underway is our Youth Voice Social Justice Grants. This is actually money that came to us from the Kellogg Foundation. It's been a 4-year project around youth leadership, building young leaders in organizations. So there's been several phases of the project, but in 2014, we had a youth summit at Techtown where we invited youth from all over the region to come and brainstorm about ideas that they have to make their communities stronger. Then we invited those youth to apply for grants to implement those ideas. In December, we made 18 grants to groups of young people, and I mean from all over the region. We had grants in Port Huron and Monroe, Washtenaw County, for all different kinds of projects. And all those youth met up 2 weeks ago to kind of check in. The projects are going great, and they really are. Some are around diversity trainings in schools. We have one group doing a kayaking tour in Monroe, where they're going to teach kids about Native American history along the river. All kinds of different things. So there's more to come. You'll hear in 2015, we're going to be talking about the results of those grants, but a lot of them are happening over the summer. Our Greenways initiative is something probably many of you are familiar with. It's been a project we've been working on for 15 years now. And this is a great example of why being a regional foundation makes sense, because we're able to build linear parks, bike paths, walking paths across city-county lines. Originally, there was $25 million raised for the Greenways initiative, again, from a number of foundations that cared about this. We were the kind of hub for that. That money ended up leveraging about 6 to 1 in federal dollars that had not been coming to this region. And that's where we want to keep making a difference. And this work is still going on. While many of our dollars have been granted, we're very involved in maintenance of a lot of the trails and parks. We have some endowment funds for maintenance. Here's the Quindercut North underway that's going to connect to Quindercut up to Eastern Market in Midtown this summer, and we're very excited about that. And then the last one I want to highlight on innovative projects, again, reason to follow us on Facebook is we got a call the Tuesday before Martin Luther King weekend from Darren Walker at Ford Foundation in New York saying the movie Selma is coming out this weekend. Martin Luther King weekend, there's an effort around the country to make sure that youth, particularly middle school and high school youth, are going to see this movie so they understand the important history here. Can you help? We want to see Detroit kids going to this movie. And so we made phone calls, and by that Friday, We had a whole group of local foundations that put about $82,000 in a pot to send kids to see Selma. And we're really delighted. We just got the results back from Paramount that we did learn that most of those tickets were used by groups of young people, either from schools or churches, where they went together and there was adults. So we're hoping there was real learning that went on, and discussion in addition to just seeing the film. So then the last thing I'm going to cover is we manage supporting organizations. A supporting organization is actually a separate legal entity with a separate board from the Community Foundation board, though we do appoint some of the members. But internally, we do help manage all the funds. We manage all the grants that flow through the supporting organizations. And so we have been doing this for a long time, but this came into a little bit more limelight in 2014. You probably heard about the establishment of the Foundation for Detroit's Future. So this was as a result of all the activity that happened with Detroit's mediation around the bankruptcy. There were many foundations from around the country that pledged over $300 million to help that mediation work. Those funds are coming to us, and this is over a 20-year period. They're paying these commitments to a supporting organization at the Community Foundation, the Foundation for Detroit's Future, and we will then pay that out as long as the city does what it's supposed to do and all of that. So we're really excited that we were asked to play this role and excited that it's working. Then the other supporting organization that became part of us 2 years ago is the DMC Foundation. So again, when the Detroit Medical Center converted from being a nonprofit to a for-profit hospital, the charitable assets needed to spin off and stay as part of a nonprofit entity. Some of those assets went to the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation, and some came to the Community Foundation. And Don's going to talk to you more about that too. So that happened 2 years ago, but really 2014 was the year we started making grants out of that fund.